What's up, guys? My name is Tai Zen. In this video episode of Living in Vietnam, I want to share with you guys about the class structure in Vietnam, into how society is set up. In Vietnam, I do not notice any racism like it is in the United States. In the United States, they like to talk about not being racist and not being racism towards each other, meaning that, first of all, let's just define racism to begin with. Racism to me means that, you know, like you discriminate someone because of their ethnicity or the skin color, things like that. So in America, they like to talk about, they promote that, you know, diversity, and they're not being racist, right? But the reality is completely different. They say that on paper, they say that with their mouth, but if you look at how America is set up, like for example, if you go into like New York City, when I was working in New York City and I was going to Long Island and stuff, I had some white friends there, and whenever I go to a new city, I always like to travel up and down the major roads just to look at the real estate, just to see how the neighborhood looks, just so that I have a better understanding of it. And what happened was, when I was in New York City, one of the things that really surprised me was that when I got there, my friend would tell me that, hey, this is like the Italian neighborhood, or this is the Irish neighborhood, or this is the black neighborhood, and places like that. And the ethnic groups really did not mix in very well. Like my friend was explaining to me that there was clear areas of Long Island, and then even in New York City on the island of Manhattan, there's clear areas where this is the Chinese, they live here, the Italians live here, and you know, things like that. The Puerto Ricans live in this neighborhood, the Jamaicans live in this neighborhood. So there's not a lot of intermingling. Now, if you go down to the that's the East Coast, and then the West Coast of America is very, in my opinion, very similar also. Not as bad as the East Coast, but the West Coast is a little bit more diverse. And then probably the one that's the least racist is probably in the South. Despite what a lot of people say, my experience has been that when you live in places like Texas, in Florida, in Louisiana, in places like that, it's a lot, to me, it's a lot, what do you call that? The ethnic groups are separated, but if you make enough money to live in a wealthy neighborhood, and there's white people there, there's black people there, there's Asian people there, it's not a big deal. Like, if like for example, like in Texas where I'm from, in the North Dallas area, those are the wealthy neighborhoods in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And if you make enough money to where you can afford to buy the expensive homes that's there, nobody says anything. Like, who cares? You know, like if you're Indian, you're Asian, you're black, you're Mexican, Hispanic, nobody cares. Okay. In America, you still have that issue where if you are a, I know some white families, they don't want their white kids marrying or dating other non-white ethnic groups, especially if it's black or things like that. They're really frown upon that. Like, they can tolerate, like, if their kids date like Latinos or Hispanics or Asians, but if their skin color gets too dark, they kind of frown on that. Okay, so in Vietnam, they don't have that kind of racism. They don't have that kind of class or society structure. The way that it's set up in Vietnam is that there is like a upper class and there is a a lower class. There's hardly any middle class. Like, I don't see too much of the middle class, although the way that the economy is progressing, there seems to be more and more middle class people that are going to be created in Vietnam. But at the moment, I don't see a lot of the middle class. What I see is somebody that's very poor in Vietnam, or they are extremely wealthy. Okay, when we talk about being wealthy in Vietnam, okay, I want to define what wealth means in Vietnam and in America. Whenever we say that someone is wealthy in America, we see them with $1 million home, and we say that they're wealthy. Like, for example, if you live in a $1.5 million home or $2 million home in Southern California or in New York City, that would be considered a wealthy home. The equivalent of that would be about half that cost which is about $600,000-$700,000 in Texas, that would be considered a very big, wealthy home, okay? And if somebody drives like a Lexus or a supercar like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or anything like that, or a Mercedes SUV or a Porsche SUV, anything like that, that's from like a that's above a Honda Civic or a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry, anything above that, like when you talk about like Acuras, Lexus, Mercedes, BMWs, any of those, that would be considered decent and wealthy in America. In Vietnam, the wealth is a lot different, because whenever you see somebody here with wealth, whenever you see somebody here with a $500,000 home in Vietnam, it's because they actually own that $500,000 home, and more than likely they already paid cash for it. Whenever people go buy homes and cars and material things here in Vietnam, it's very rare that they pay it through financing or monthly payments, for two reasons. One is because to borrow money from the banks for your cars and your home is very difficult. Like they have a very rigorous, difficult process for you to go through in order to qualify to borrow money to buy a car or buy a home, okay? Because usually they're very expensive. And the second thing is that whenever people buy things here in Vietnam, they try to buy it with cash. Like they don't have that concept of monthly payments like in America. So when you look at somebody with a big wealthy home in America, it's almost a given. Not 100% of the time, but it's safe to say that probably the majority of the time, probably over 90% of the time, it's a house that's being financed and the owner still makes monthly payments on it. In other words, the bank still owns that house, and the owner, that's the homeowner that's living in that house, is not really owning that house just yet, okay? So now, when you see somebody living in a $500,000 or $1 million home in Vietnam, which is very common, especially in the big cities like Ho Chi Minh City, like in Hanoi and like Da Nang, right? That's very common for people to live in $500,000, $1 million homes, okay? Because real estate is extremely expensive in Vietnam, okay? Especially in the metropolitan areas. And when you see somebody live in a $500,000 or $1 million home, more than likely, the majority of them have already paid it off and they own it. So you might look at it and say, oh, they own a $1 million home. A Vietnamese guy owns a $1 million home in Ho Chi Minh City, and then another guy owns a $1 million home in Texas or in New York City or in California, and it's very, very different. You can almost bet that 9 out of 10 times that person in Vietnam has paid that house off. And the same goes for cars, the same thing goes for big screen TVs, the same thing goes for computers and expensive electronic equipment. Most of the time when you see somebody with any material things in Vietnam, more than likely they paid it off already. There's hardly any monthly payments on it, okay? So the other thing too is that whenever you see people that are wealthy in Vietnam, the wealth is actually real. What I mean by that is that if like, for example, like when I bought my wife a new 2019 Toyota Camry, right? When I bought her that 2019 Toyota Camry, the new Camry, it was like $30,000, and I walked in there and I was about to pay cash for it, and you know, I was ready to pay the $30,000 cash for it, and we were negotiating, and somewhere along the negotiations, you know, I asked if, you know, the guy, if, you know, we can do it at $30,000 instead of the $32,000 or something like that, and I said I will pay cash for it. And what I meant was that I was actually going to pay him like $30,000 in cash, and with my credit card. And he thought that I meant that, you know, because at that time you know, I have a good credit rating in America, so I have a high credit score, so I qualify for their 0% down and 0% financing. No, it was like very little down, like $500 or $1,000 down and 0% financing. So that means I can just put like $500 or $1,000 down, and I can drive out of that lot that night with a brand new Toyota Camry and only put like maybe $500 or $1,000 down, and I have no interest on the money that I borrow from the bank to pay that car off. So I was, you know, and so when the guy came out, he said, hey, look, here's the contract for the Toyota Camry, and, you know, just sign here, and you're going to make monthly payments on it for 60 months. And I said 60 months, right? And I looked at him and I was surprised because I wanted to pay cash for it right there so I don't have to deal with the monthly payments. And he said, well, if you don't like it, we can do 72 months because you have a good credit score. And I was like, well, if that's the case, then give me 72 months, right? Now, I had a credit card in hand. I was going to pay cash for it right there, right? Pay the whole thing off so I don't have to deal with it. And at the end of the month, I was just going to pay off the whole car payment from my bank account and be done with it and not owe anything on the car. And the fact that they were going to give me 60 months, 0% interest, that means I can just take my time. I can pay them monthly payments of $1,000 or so, and then keep the other 20-something thousand dollars and put it back and buy Bitcoins and Ethereum with it in the cryptocurrency market, or put that money into the stock market and trade it and invest it and make more money with it, right? So I was going to do that, and especially when they were going to give me the 72 months 0% financing, that means I pay no interest. I just pay the principal only for 72 months, okay? Now, I went ahead and signed that, and I did that. In Vietnam, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as 0% financing. There's no such thing as $0 down or $100 down or $1,000 down. There's none of that, okay? If you want to buy that, you better come in. If you want them to finance it for you, they might finance half the car for you. You still got to pay the other half of the car. But you got to keep in mind that that same $30,000 Toyota Camry in America is not $30,000 in Vietnam. They put 100% tariff on it, import tariff on it. So when it comes into Vietnam, now it's worth like $60,000, and plus with all the other accessories and things, doodads here and there, it comes out to be like $60-something, $65,000 for a brand new Toyota Camry. If you're buying a supercar like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, usually they'll charge you like a luxury tax, 100% luxury tax, and 100% tariff, and 100% emissions because the engine is so big. And so a $200,000 car could end up, being $700,000 or $800,000, and nobody's financing that. When you come in and buy that, more than likely you're paying cash for it, 100% cash for it, or you are paying 50% down and you finance the rest of it. Okay, so either way, buying a car or buying a house in Vietnam is an extremely expensive task to do. So only the wealthy people can do that. So whenever you see someone with an expensive car that's considered an expensive car in America or in Europe, just know that that person is very wealthy, or else they would not be able to pay cash for that car. Okay, and the other thing too is that there is a very the competitive nature among the Vietnamese culture, where one family is always trying to show off that they have more money, more wealth, and things like that than the next family, than their neighbors. So if people find out, if your neighbors find out that you finance that car or you finance that house, maybe not so much the house, but if you finance that car and did not pay cash for it, they kind of look down on that, So because of that, there is a wealthy and a middle class, okay? So if you come over here and to Vietnam and you speak English well, and you are considered an overseas Vietnamese, a VQ, and you have like a college education, and you're able to get an American salary or a Western salary, and you live in Vietnam, what happens is the Vietnamese people put you at the top of society. And when you're at the top of society in Vietnam, you are treated significantly better than you are in America. So if you are Asian in America, no matter how much money you make, no matter how good you are at what you do, and no matter how educated you are never going to be treated as good as the white people that live in America, because America is made up close to 80% white people, and only the other 20% are not white people. So all the rules, all the laws, all the culture there are designed for white people. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's their country, right? We are guests in their country. We are people, we are Asian people living in someone else's country, okay? Those same white people, if they come over to Asia, to Thailand, where I'm at right now in Bangkok, or to Ho Chi Minh City, where I'll be going back over there in about a month, right? They are not going to be treated the same, no matter how wealthy they are. Like, for example, in Thailand right here, the white people here, no matter how wealthy they are never viewed the same, at the same status in society as the rich Thai people. The same way is in Vietnam, okay? No matter how rich that white person is, they are respected, they're admired and everything, but they are never viewed as the elite of the society in Vietnam like the rich Vietnamese people or the rich Thai people that's in their respective countries. Okay, so that was one of the reasons why that fascinated me, and it was the first time in my life that in America, because I'm Asian, okay, no matter how good I was at in my sales job when I was in America, no matter how good of a stock trading coach that I was, when I worked for these different companies, I was never, my business partner is Chinese. He also worked with me to teach people how to trade stocks, futures, forex, options in America. And no matter how good we were at our job, we would never be put at the top and be promoted to the top of our company or the company we work for. Okay, so it didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter how good we were. Okay, because there were other white guys that they wanted to be at the top spots. Okay, and other white guys that are in management and stuff, whenever they promote people, it's still white people. Okay, now you've heard me say many times, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I always say that America is a country of merit, meaning that you get promoted, you get paid on your talent. Nobody cares how rich or how poor you are. Can you do the job or not? And can you do it well or not? So that's what makes America different from these other countries. However, when you get to the top levels of the corporate world, there are other guys, there are other white guys that are just as good as you are or better, right? And if you are in a situation where you are good at what you do and there's a white guy that's good at what he does, it's almost 100% of the time that white guy is going to get that promotion or that job. Now, I want you guys to hear that, and I don't want you guys to think that I am bitter or that I do not like that. You know, I am grateful for having all my white friends and meeting all the white people that helped taught me how to learn how to make money, understand the global financial system, how to make money, how to become wealthy, how to become financially free. You know, many of you guys know that I came as a poor Vietnamese from a very poor fishing village in Vietnam. I came to America as a Vietnamese refugee, was really poor in America. Nobody in my family finished high school, and we lived in the ghetto black neighborhoods. You know, me and my brother ended up selling drugs because we hung around the wrong people. We got in trouble, went to prison for drugs, and I spent nearly 14 years in prison before I got out and had to rebuild my life again and get back on my feet in my mid-30s. But by the time I was in my mid-40s, I was able to retire thanks to the profits that I made from trading stocks, forex, futures, crypto. Most of it was all in crypto, right? Cryptocurrencies. And so I'm sharing this with you guys so that when you guys ever decide to come to Vietnam, you will notice that there is a very, very big difference between the rich and the poor, okay? And what's funny is that, what's interesting to me is that in America, whenever there's you have the poor people, they're always bitching, moaning, and complaining that the rich people, you know, have it better, the tax treatments are better, the business laws are better for the rich people and things like that. So there's always whining and complaining from the poor people in America of, you know, that the rich people are getting special treatment, okay? It's completely different in Asia, okay? In Vietnam and in Thailand, right? The poor people, you don't ever hear about the poor people getting treated better because they have money. Like that is like unheard of. Like, that's not even something that's in their vocabulary. Like, if you were to open your mouth and say, man, that's wrong, that's not fair, that the government makes all the tax laws to benefit the rich and everything, and the poor people will look at you like, what's wrong with that? Like, what's wrong with that? The rich people are the one making the laws, so they're not going to make laws that hurt them, right? So why would that bother you, right? So, and the poor people don't have a problem with that. They don't have a problem with the rich people being rich in Vietnam or in Thailand, right? They have, like in America, like the poor people actually get upset and get angry because the rich people are making more money. Like right now, if you listen on the news from the youngest congresswoman or the congressperson in Congress, in American Congress right now, is a young lady named Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, and she won in her district in New York. She's the youngest person ever voted to be in Congress in America, and she's complaining that the rich people, she doesn't like it that the rich people have better tax treatment, better business treatment, and things like that. In Asia, in Southeast Asia here, nobody cares about it. Like, nobody complains about that. Nobody says anything about that. Nobody, like, why would you complain about that? They're rich, that's why they get that special treatment. That comes with the territory of being rich and being wealthy. And so when you come over here and you work here, whether you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a business, or you're just a highly paid individual, you're receiving a Western salary while living in Southeast Asia, right? They don't see that as you get treatment. They don't see that, oh, you know, you're an overseas Vietnamese and you're coming over here and you're getting better treatment, you know, and the local Vietnamese are not, or you are a Westerner and you come over here to Asia and you're getting better treatment and the locals are not. Nobody complains about that, not once. It's not even in their vocabulary or their mental mindset and their thinking to complain and to look down on rich people living in big mansions and big houses, okay? And speaking of big mansions and big houses, okay, I want to share something with you guys. If you take 1,000 Vietnamese that live outside of Vietnam, in America, in Canada, Australia, in France, right? If you think that they're wealthy, I would say that for every 1,000 Vietnamese that I met or that I know of, or that you know, then this is just numbers that I'm pulling out of thin air. They're just guess, okay? These are not like actual statistical numbers or anything that's real, right? It's just my guess from my observation, what I've seen. If you pull out like, let's just say 100 people, 100 Vietnamese people in America, and there's 5 or 6 millionaires in there, that would be very high. That would be very, very high. Like if you just go to the city of Dallas and you just randomly go into the Vietnamese community and just go, you, come here, right? And check which one of you guys are millionaires, right? In US dollars, US dollar millionaires, right? If you find 5 or 6, you're lucky if there's that many, okay? If you come to Ho Chi Minh City or any of the big cities, like Ho Chi Minh City, Da Nang, Hanoi, Cần Thơ, or any of those big cities like that has like over 500,000 population, you go to any of those cities in the metropolitan area, you can go, you, all 100, you come here. How many of you guys are millionaires? And I promise you that they will be significantly more. How much more? 50%? I don't know, but it's going to be very high. Like for example, when the first beach city that I went to in Vietnam was a city called Da Nang. It is amazingly beautiful. It is a gorgeous, beautiful beach city. And when I went there, I met, just in the first week that I was there, I was going around talking to different people, trying to learn how the real estate works and how to buy a house, how to rent a house and things like that there. I was trying to learn about their real estate. And in just the first week alone, I met probably somewhere around 5 or 6 deca millionaires. Not just millionaire, but deca millionaire, meaning that they have $10 million of net worth or more. And I know this to be true because they are the owners of the properties, and their properties are worth like $2, $3, $4 million, and then their next property next door is worth another $3 or $4 million, and then their house down the street is worth another $3 or $4 million. So these people are extremely, extremely wealthy. Okay, the rich people, the rich Vietnamese people inside Vietnam are massively richer than the rich people that's in America, than the rich Vietnamese that's in America. Okay, you have Vietnamese people that live out in Silicon Valley. You have Vietnamese people that live in Orange County, in Irvine, in Newport Beach, in those areas like that. And you have rich Vietnamese people in Houston, in Atlanta, in Dallas-Fort Worth, in New York City. But those wealthy Vietnamese people are nowhere near the wealthy people that are in Vietnam. Like, to go to Vietnam and to see somebody living in a $10 million house, or a $20 million house, or a $50 million house, right? You can see that in a bunch of places. Like, if you go down into District 2, I went and looked at some real estate to see how much the housing costs down there. And there was one area where the houses, I forget what the name of the area was, but the houses start at $3 million, $3 million US dollars, okay? And that was the minimum price, and the house is just a shell. In other words, it's just walls with electric, plumbing, piping, The interior walls are not painted, they're not decorated. The floor inside is not decorated, it's not painting. There's a few simple light fixtures in the ceilings, and that's it. There's nothing else. Like, it's pretty much, the outside is completely painted, the exterior is completely painted, it's completely done. Everything is done on the outside, but the inside is completely empty. And even that, it starts at $3 million. And they usually do it like that, okay? They give you the house with the empty interior, and then you can decorate it how you want. That's like very common tradition in Vietnam, okay? So these houses in this neighborhood start at $3 million up. And then right across the street from it were other houses that start at $6 million and up. And the $3 million houses were like close to 4,000 square foot homes. And then the houses that's in the 6 million, they were around the like close to, I think, like 6,000 or 7,000 square foot homes. And that's what they start at. And usually the people that buy those homes usually pay cash for it. They usually pay it outright. Like, they'll walk in there with a bag of money and bars of gold and just pay for the thing. There's not very much financing going on with that. Okay, so just want to share that with you guys. When people are wealthy in Vietnam, they are crazy wealthy and crazy rich. They are not like the rich people in America or in Australia or in Canada like that. Okay, here's the other thing too, is most of the people that create their wealth here is from real estate. Okay, so whenever you talk to the people over in Vietnam and their wealth is from real estate, they can show you it's very material. Like, it's their wealth is not like in stocks, bonds, and things like that. Like in the US, like the majority of my wealth is in the cryptocurrency market and in the financial markets. It's not in physical assets like cars, gold, or houses or anything like that. Okay, so because of that, I can go anywhere and take my assets with me and make money off of my assets no matter where I go. Whereas if it's a property or something, it's kind of hard to take $1 million house with you to another country. Okay, so I'm sharing this with you guys because when you guys come to Vietnam, you think that it's a poor country. If you left Vietnam many years ago after the war, like I did back in 1977, if you've never been back to Vietnam, or if you haven't been back into Vietnam in the last 10 years, you are going to think that it's a poor country, and it's still a poor country, and it is so far from the truth. There are wealthy people here that is just ungodly wealthy. Okay, if you like this video about what I shared with you about living in Vietnam, give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment below if you want me to make a video about other aspects about Vietnam that you might be interested in, and I'll explore it and share it with you on video. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next episode.